Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Samson's World. There I am today on my show, filmmaker, activist, owner, content creator of Maverick Media Group, the man, the myth, the legend, St. Louis native. Give it up for Mr. Chris Phillips, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, snap.
Right on.
Oh, and there you go. How are you doing, man? Let me plug us both in here. I got my I don't know, my Goodwill Hunting haircut on today. My hair's getting so long. This is like my high school haircut is back, I think.
Slick it back.
Hey, so Chris Phillips, man, we have never even met in person, but we've kept in touch for a while through the Facebook world. And so I just want to say it's a pleasure to meet you in the real, because this whole Facebook world, it's a whole different thing getting to meet somebody in real life. But I want to start off by letting you tell people exactly who you are, a little bit about Ferguson 365, the short film you did about Mike Brown and obviously Ferguson, just how the whole thing blew up out of St. Louis, the whole Black Lives Matter movement. So tell these good people a little bit about yourself. Can you hear me?
Thank you so much. Be here to speak with you, man. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, can you hear me?
Huh?
Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, good.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. Basically, I have this company, Maverick Media Group. So I do film, television, and creative content, working with different brands. And I had been living in Ferguson since about 04, 05. And I was staying in Canfield Green Apartments, which is the same apartment complex Mike Brown was killed in. So unfortunately, August 9th, 2014, I was a DP on the set of a project. And when that happened, I saw that explosion. And so literally, once I knew that the eyes of the world were basically from having Black man and always having grown up around police brutality, the systemic issues, I said, okay, this is an opportune moment to shine a light on that and put a microscope on that. And one good way to do that is through film, for to evoke emotion. And I think that's very essential when you want to get ignited to bringing about change. So that's what I did with that. And then I created a short film called Ferguson 365. I took that to 12 festivals, got 5 awards, and now I'm working in a broader, beyond feature film length version of that. So.
Okay, that's amazing. I mean, just the short of it is so powerful. Just even the sound, the editing, your photography, even the what's his name, Darren. I'm forgetting his last name. Who that's probably a good thing. Fuck him. But just him talking about if Mike Brown and Darius would have stayed on the corner and I hadn't seen those cigarellas, he says, I would have probably gone and got lunch and they would have probably gone about their day. And that drone shot you have is just such a powerful moment on why the fuck couldn't he have just kept driving? So it's pretty crazy. And how does it, make you feel, obviously, being there right in Canfield, being in the heart of this whole movement, And then seeing where we are now and seemingly how things either haven't changed, have gotten worse. There has been progress. It's like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. How do you feel about that coming from Mike Brown to where we are right now?
Yeah, so frustration that it is for me is like right now, Black Lives Matter is again it's trending, right? And there's something because of the fact is that you have corporate white America getting behind. So I really question the authenticity of a lot of it, particularly when you have a man like Colin Kaepernick who was blacklisted and his career was taken from him, for 4 years. And all of that, those issues, and that's all he was doing is literally just bringing attention to these social and these systemic issues and saying Black Lives Matter the whole time. And he took a knee in peaceful protest. And now you have the NFL doing a 180, saying the same things, and they're doing everything but apologizing to him. And so I look at the fact that in 2014, Mike Brown happened, and in the wake of that, you had Sandra Bland and Tamir Rice and Eric Garner, and you had Laquan McDonald and so many names. America had plenty of opportunities, even before Mike Brown's death, since Rodney King, to say these things, address these things, and they never did. So, so it's frustrating.
On this date, we have Elijah McClain, who's tomorrow. I mean, I think that's the most insane part about this is they make it so hard to hold on to one person because you're reeling for somebody else the next day. And it's, I've been talking with people, what will it take? 8 minutes and 46 seconds of a cop kneeling on George Floyd's neck and killed him. He was yelling out for his mom. I think that's what it almost took.
Yeah.
And like you said, how do you, because I see a lot of people saying, okay, yeah, like what we just said, okay, why couldn't they hear the peaceful protest? Why do we hear it now? And, in a sense, do we just welcome those people to the table now that they're here? And hold on, I lost my guest, guys. I'm talking to myself for a second. Chris dropped out, but hold on, he'll be back here in a second. But to reiterate kind of what I was saying until Chris comes back is, a lot of people, I believe, better late than never in a sense. So, and here's Chris coming back in, guys. Hold on, let me bring him back in. Chris, you there?
I'm here. Hey, my phone.
Right, man. No, this is great.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Technology, baby. Hold on, let me bring you back into the combo. I was talking to myself, but this is such a great lesson in talk show hosting. Because sometimes, guys, the live feed drops out, and just so you know, like I'm live switching this on my iPhone right here. Switcher Studio is the app. It's pretty amazing. So I'm live switching my phone. I'm gonna switch actually Chris and I to a little picture in picture, so we can get into this again. So, sorry, Chris. So basically, what I was kind of talking, what I was saying before, you got cut out, is what you just said is absolutely right. People are coming to the table. Black Lives Matter is trending. I'm seeing people protesting out in the street. And I was just talking to somebody, my producer, Del Harrison, about you before this. I said, one thing you got to know about Chris Phillips, he's not one of these guys like myself or somebody else who's out on a safe street corner with their creatively made Black Lives Matter poster. They are representing. So we need to encourage those people because they weren't out 6 years ago when Mike Brown was killed, when Kaepernick was kneeling. But you are like a frontliner. Like I follow you on Facebook when Minneapolis started exploding. I see you on there like, I don't know, guys, should I go? Should I go? And I'm like, oh my God, I was like, probably not. And he's like, I'm going to go. He was hopping a damn car. You're right in the middle of it. You're getting tear gassed. You're live. Like everybody watching your live shit is just, everybody's like, please stay safe, praying for you, And, for you, understand you do it because that's what you do. It is that adrenaline rush also part of it. Is it like parachuting in a sense, but I want people to get the difference of what you do as a real Black Lives Matter activist, like getting tear gas front line, compared to, like we said, some people who are jumping on the trend now, which we have to welcome them, because I was saying better late than never for us to, and I won't say us, like, but I'm just saying to turn your backs on people who are waking up to the truth. It'd be hypocritical to then smack them in the face and say, well, fuck you, like, okay, you're here now, so let's climb up the mountain. But how do you feel about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're making some good points. I think that what's essential is we have to understand is that this is a war that needs to be fought on many fronts, and it's going to take all people in various spaces. And the issue of racism, white people have to do the heavy lifting. They have to fix racism. We can't expect Black people to fix racism.
Right.
And so if you're pushing out the very people that you need to stand with you and be your allies, that war is not going to get won. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so I think that it is better late than never. And that isn't that the end game? Isn't that what we want, is for people to like realize? And, we want those Confederate, racist, white supremacist people. Don't we want to convert them? Like, the end game shouldn't be just to be bickering with people. It's really, and that's why I use the blessing God gave me to use film to do that. You know what I'm saying? And and really that's why I get so close and so engaged, shot at with the projectors, and I've been talking directly on, and it's because I take that risk because I want people to see the in that moment, because sometimes it's anti-sides, but people, a lot of times with Ferguson, people didn't understand, like, the police were some of the most intimidating people out there. Like, it wasn't the I'm scared of. It's about, the flash moment, emotional response of police officers who have the ability to freedom. So I take that risk, and I'm glad that I just think that people should have the patience to understand and really educate themselves on this. So.
What do you think, now that there is a lot of people coming to the table, can you hear me? Yeah. What do you think?
Yes,
what is the best way that white allies can come to the table? Or, besides the obvious posting on Facebook, I'm guilty of it. They call me a social justice warrior, whatnot. An online stooge, I've been called for saying the shit I have. What's interesting is I've never had any Black person call me out for my pro-Black posts. It's always white people calling me crazy, asking me why do you care? And that's always so interesting to me, because it's like, why do they care? And that tells me a lot. Why does it bug you so much? And I find that a lot with what I do post. A lot of people, I post videos of a lot of the stuff happening, police brutality. And, people ask me to stop, like, go back to posting the funny stuff. I'm a comedian, and it's kind of important to me to not just stay, as they say, silence is violence. But, what more do you think people can do?
Well, I think you have to listen to Black voices. That's starting there. You have to listen to these Black voices. You can have all the good intentions in the world, but if you're not listening to the people that are directly impacted by these issues, how can you speak on the political front what's best for all? I know people, they were on the Bernie Sanders campaign, but at the same time, Bernie Sanders is not the end all be all. We have local elections that impact us more directly, where we do have Black politicians that are running from it. Everything that happened in Ferguson had nothing to do with federal senators, congressional, or president. It was all city manager, judge, prosecutor that were all white in a town that was 2/3 Black. So you have to listen to those voices. You have to give you have to supplement them with the resources that they need to, take those battles up front, because we have the political front of this, but then we also have directly in a systemic way, look in your places of employment, look in your circles, look in ways that there's a lack of representation there that is negatively impacting us. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's a war on many fronts. And we have to start addressing that. I think these Black Lives Matter posts and things by companies are cute, but what do your board of directors look like?
Right.
What do your board of trustees look like?
Yeah.
And we have to start using, white people have to use their privilege and their influence to uplift Black voices.
Right.
That can happen in so many ways. And then what you're doing is very valid too. You have the conversation. People that are resistant to you, they're the ones, it's about power, and they don't want to lose that power. They want to retain that privilege and that power that they have. And so when you speak out against that and you speak in terms of equality and equity, is that you're taking my power. And so I applaud you do that, you know.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I guess I never understand it because I always tell people, like, it doesn't change the complexion. You know what I mean? Like, admitting to white privilege, it doesn't stop me from still getting white privilege, you know? And I tell people I'm Jewish, but I have the privilege of being able to not tell people I'm Jewish because, you know, not everybody loves Jewish people and they have all kinds of things they think about Jewish people. But I have the privilege of not looking very Jewish stereotypically. So I can choose to turn it on and off if I want it. And, you know, sadly, sometimes I don't tell people I'm Jewish because why have the conversation if I don't need to? You know, it's almost sad. Like, if you could turn on and off your Blackness or whatnot, some people might choose to be like, you know what, I'm just going to turn it off right now. You know, I mean, that's sad, but it's like it's the truth. And
yeah, exactly.
I don't know where I was going with that. I lost my point, but
no problem.
I had one.
I think
like
that
Animal House is like Animal House. Like, remember when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? It's like, let him go. He's on a roll. But I want to ask you this. This has been something that's on my mind. What do you think about Shawn King? I've followed him for a while. I support a lot of what he's done. I see he was a big part of Breonna's Law. He's been a big part of bringing around what I've heard. I've seen articles that he's a white liberal's wet dream. I've heard things that Shawn King is like shady about his funds. He has a business. It shutters. It closes down, and people are concerned. But I always see Shawn King defending himself, posting it on online, his audits and the money he spends. So my question is, because I'm honestly confused, because I'm a fan of Shawn King's, but I'm also conflicted because I hear all these people. I hear Black people telling me, like, Sam, Shawn King is not fucking good. Okay, I hear a lot of white people say, Sam, he's not really Black, he's white. First off, who cares? I don't give a shit. If he does good work, I don't care what color they are. Second, they're saying he's stealing all this money and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, I see it. I don't have the hard proof. I've had people sharing articles with me, but also he's done good work. He's had change. So if he is making money off this, like, Chris, if you're rich off your activism and your filmmaking, I hope you are, because why does a billionaire who sells guns, why don't we scrutinize him? Why don't we scrutinize Donald Trump for the money he makes? But you might know more personally about Shawn King or have an opinion, and I'd like to hear that from you, because he's a controversial character. So
yeah, I think so. One, I support what Shawn King is doing. I think Shawn King, he is playing a very essential and critical role in bringing awareness to these issues. He has a platform. He has large following. He has also the aptitude and the understanding of these issues from a systemic standpoint. And I think he's important. I mean, I've worked directly with, the dynamics here in St. Louis. We have a St. Louis Police Officers Union, and then we have the Ethical Society of Police, which is a union that is comprised mostly of Black officers. And it was started in the 60s due to racism and corruption in the police department. You know, when they took the bold step of holding one of the officers accountable, Jason Stockley, back in 2017, Shawn King took that and blasted that out. There was no profit gain from that.
Yeah.
There was nothing. He just wanted to bring about. He wanted to uplift the voices of good police officers that were trying to hold bad ones accountable. You know what I mean? The thing we also have to be careful about is that, you know, whenever you're dealing with somebody that has a platform, a following, there's always going to be criticism, and there's going to be people that want to tear that down from within and from outside. You know, we have to really take a second and really scrutinize the people that are doubting him or questioning him. I'm not saying that he's free and clear of everything. I don't know, but I'm just saying that also at the same time, Martin Luther King had that same element. He had people trying to bring him down from within his own camp, and of course, white supremacists. Malcolm X, same situation. He had people from within the Islam to bring him down, and then of course, you know, the FBI and everything like that. Look at have those strong black leaders that were present. Yeah, and we have to look at people. Al Sharpton, again, like I said, I'm not giving them a pass. I just don't know, because I have not been able to validate the negative claims on him. But I will say we have to look at all the situations and all the information that he's bringing to light. I mean, I dealt with days ago, some woman called me opportunist for being out here filming, invested my own money into creating this award-winning film. Nobody paid me to do that. Right. And how are you going to, you know, get mad at a black award-winning filmmaker that lived in Ferguson for 13, 14 years, but you're not mad at CNC and Netflix when they do it?
Right. Yeah, you know, I mean, that's
a person of color that said that about me.
That's crazy. I mean, and you know, and I'm sure too, you know, one of my a comment is asking, you know, what do we think about the latest retired LAPD conspiracy plot to kill Shawn King? And I was telling somebody even further, you know, this man has a family. He has 5 kids. Okay. That's a lot of mouths to feed. That's a lot of money to support all those kids and take care of them. And so I'm just like, I don't know. For me, I kind of see it from my sense. I've been a failed entrepreneur. I've started a business and it's failed. You know, I think there's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of money that he raises, but I don't know. I guess from what I can see, I mean, he's done a lot of good. He's brought a lot. I mean, Ahmaud Arbery alone and Breonna Taylor alone. I mean, he is, I'd say the reason Ahmaud Arbery's killers have been arrested and indicted or whatnot.
So we have to also, and I just wanted to add on to that. It's like
dollars. You know, I hope he's got a yacht for doing that. You know, because that's like a fireman going in and saving some old lady. Give him a yacht. You know, that's something of value. You know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is
6'9" to jiggle wop wop jiggle wop wop. You know, I mean, fucking like a bling bling of his own fucking head. You know, it's not like Shawn King's got a bling of Shawn King on his neck. So it's just so backwards that we don't hold our celebrities accountable for, you know, why does Cardi B need those red bottom shoes, you know?
Exactly. It's like, why is it that we have to understand that, again, this thing of conquering white supremacy and anti-racism work, it takes money and resources to do it. When I've been all over the country filming, when I was in Baltimore when Freddie Gray got killed, when I was in Chicago when Laquan McDonald got killed, when I was in Minneapolis after George Floyd, when I was in Georgia for Rayshard Brooks, like, it costs money to get there. Like your travel, your room, your board, you got to eat. You know, every time I'm shooting in a 5K raw cinema format, you know, the data that I'm filming and shooting, all of that costs money, and it's to tell the truth and it's to bring awareness. And so, we should, I mean, is somebody supposed to do this? Like, how are people expecting that we do this? How are we supposed to get the word out? How are we supposed to travel to these places and cover that media? Because again, we're not scrutinizing mainstream media when they do anything like that. it takes resources to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
Why
it's no
would you
different than
not
when you're running a
hire?
political company.
Why would CNN not hire you? You know what I mean? Why would they not have a brand to fucking give you your own little truck? You know, I mean that.
Right.
I know. I think Brittany Noble kind of broke out from Ferguson. Was that her name? The reporter who just started like on a cell phone. But
yeah, she was working for Channel 4 at the time, and then from there, yeah, and then she went down to Mississippi to take an anchoring job. But I hear that she got some backlash down there, I think, or people were trying to talk to her about Mike Brown and they wouldn't let her do it. You know what I'm saying? That's what I heard. So
man, it's all fucked up. I mean, what do you think can be done about police brutality? I have a little stupid theory of why don't we use drone technology so at least police officers never need to get close to anyone again. Fly it over. You can even attach a taser to one of those things, or just track the guy. Like, why don't we let people just go? Why didn't we let Rayshard Brooks? Why didn't they let him go? You know, because I get let go. Somebody who looks like me, I'm confident I get let go. I know how I'm treated by the police. And see, that's the thing. White people don't understand where they don't understand. Say, well, if you just obey, if you do this, but they don't understand. We get respect from the police. It's not years and years of disrespect. So we don't have attitude with the police. You know what I mean? But I imagine most black people, when they get pulled over by police, are like, all right, what kind of bullshit is this about? What is this going to be? Am I going to die? I never worry about dying. I'm terrified about my stomach sinks. I get so scared I'm going to get a ticket. But not, I don't have to put my hands up on the wheel. I can reach in my glove compartment, move about my car freely. I can fucking dance. And I do the joke that I literally got pulled over and I had Chinese soup dumplings in my car. And I offered the cop a soup dumpling for some leniency on my ticket. And he's like, yeah, no, I can't do that. Thanks anyway, though, man. But you know, that's white privilege. You know what I mean? Like, black people don't get treated like that. And so, you know, I like to point that out. But what do you think can be done?
So there's a couple of things that can be done. Well, one, we have to look at scrutinizing the hiring practices and the leadership within. You know, in most states, you know, it's only about 600 and 650 hours to become a police officer, and that's it. Versus to be a hairstylist, it's like 1,300, 1,400 hours, right?
Massage therapist is more. You know, to jerk somebody off, I think you have to train longer.
It's more, right. So we have to look at the people we're putting in place to hire these officers. The second thing is that defunding the police, which is a big thing that's going on right now, I think is very, very powerful, and we should really consider that, because the fact is that there's a lot of situations that get escalated due to the police. If you're dealing with somebody that has a mental disorder, or somebody like Rayshard Brooks, that they had the discretion to let him go because he didn't hit anybody, he didn't cause any property damage. Somebody else, like a social worker, could have went up to what defunding the police looks like is instead of the police showing up, somebody saying, hey, Mr. Brooks, I see you're intoxicated. Let me call you a cab so you can get home to your destination. Versus that situation.
Can I stop you just for 1 second, Chris? Because I think this is very important. The defund the police, I know, freaks out a lot of mid-moderate white people. So, and again, I hear on both sides what people are telling me. So I want you to continue. But I think a lot of this defund the police scares people. You know, it's almost like restructure it. So we're not buying military grade weapons, but we're sending in social workers like you just explained. But so continue. But also, that's a big thing where people get so caught up on that verbiage.
Yeah. It's not eliminating the police, because you still have violent criminals out there that you need an adequate police response. It's to say that we have so many situations that don't need to be handled by a police officer because they've clearly demonstrated that they don't have the capacity or the will or the track record of handling these situations in a professional manner that doesn't get taken out of control. There's tons of people, I can't even remember the names of people that have been killed, assaulted by the police, and they couldn't decipher that they have a mental disorder. You only went to classes for 600 hours to become a cop. So how are you to know that somebody, if they're, what they're dealing with, And so that's what it is. It's also saying too, we were talking about the issue of mass incarceration, this arrest and incarcerate model we have over here at the workhouse in St. Louis, where 98% of these people are pretrial, but they're sitting in a jail that had, an issue where the temperature was 120 degrees in there, no AC during the summer. It's rat infested. There's feces in the food. That needs to be eliminated. Those people don't need to sit there and even around Ferguson itself.
Because they can't afford jail. And also, real quick to interject, just everybody should watch the documentary The 13th, especially every white person.
Oh, absolutely.
That movie. Everybody should watch. I had a friend who watched that. He's like, Jesus, Sam. It's like, what the fuck, man? I bet you didn't even make it through the first 5 minutes of that. I'm like, dude, I told you to watch that movie 2 years ago, you asshole. And he's like, wow, man, I get it.
Right.
Yeah. But I was like, everybody white, watch, get on Netflix, watch The 13th. It's really mandatory. But go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. And the other thing that needs to happen is that we have this problem in America with policing where officers that have accounts of misconduct are not being appropriately dealt with. And I'm gonna just tell you, there is a governing body. The name is different in each state, but there's an organization or a governing body called POST, which stands for Peace Officer Standards and Training. Whenever, let's say they have a misconduct charge, the police department, what they're supposed to do is report that to POST. POST is supposed to investigate the situation, and then from there, they have the ability to take away a cop's license or suspend it for them to be a police officer so that they don't have to work in any other department. But the thing is, none of these departments are required to report it to POST. And what happens is that you have officers like the one that killed George Floyd, 18 misconduct complaints, 2 resulted in discipline, and they're not mandated to report that. So Darren Wilson killed Mike Brown. He was fired from Jennings, which is literally 1.5 miles away from Ferguson. He got fired from Jennings and then jumps over to Ferguson and then kills Mike Brown. If you look at all of these officers that are getting involved in these situations, they have a track record and a history of misconduct. So what we can do is we can make it mandatory that these misconduct complaints it's required in every single state. And then the states aren't even allowed to talk to each other. So, you look at the guy that killed Anthony Lamar Smith, Jason Stockley. Well, he's gone from St. Louis, but he goes down to Texas and works. You know what I'm saying? And so, that's where people they need to start asking for legislation that it's required that happens. I love in New York that they passed in the wake of George Floyd 50A, which now makes those records available to everybody because before all that stuff was sealed. So we need to start requiring that.
Yeah. And what do you think? I mean, this is kind of a little side subject, but I know there's a lot of mystery and conspiracy following about 7 Black Lives Matter protesters. Darren Seal, I believe, one of the women's sons was lynched in her backyard. I hate to bring up there's been 6 Black men hung in the United States in like the last month in New York, I think Georgia, here in California. So like, what do you the first question, what do you make of those mysterious deaths of the Black Lives Matter protesters? Somebody was like shot and then in a car burning. To me, that's not a suicide, right? I mean, I don't feel like, how could all those guys live the life they do and then kill themselves? Like they're living such a dangerous lives and probably got threatened every day. And when you do the work you do, these police are aware of who you are. Like, it's a very scary thing. You guys are risking your life because now these racist cops know who the fuck you are. So So what do you feel about that? What do you think what's the truth in there?
I mean, I think that you know, I can't speak for every situation as if it's pertaining towards that, but what I do know is that being a part of this, advocating for what's right, you're going to face a serious amount of opposition, and that threats and attempts on people's lives are very real. You know what I mean? And I think it's no coincidence that we could have a series of people that are hung, in this period, in this moment where we're fighting for a Tatiana, Ahmad, Brianna, you know, and George. I don't think it's any coincidence. I think it's definitely we're being reminded of what used to happen back in Jim Crow era. You know what I'm saying? And we have to be conscious of that. And we as people have to look out. We have to do a very, very strong job of protecting and being conscious of and really, just like I said, protecting each other and looking out for each other, like, you know what I mean. But there's always risk involved. There's some people that, instead of, you know, it's like Trump supporters, they go blindly, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's hatred there, you know what I mean? And so they do target that. I mean, I think it's very mysterious. You know, and I know, like, Melissa McKinney's, the messed up part about that is her son Danye Jones was like, they found him hung with his pants pulled down. And what makes that situation so frustrating is that St. Louis County Police investigates that, and they just drop the ball in so many ways that you have to scrutinize the investigation itself. And it makes you think, like, more so that it's a setup. I'm not saying it is, but you think that it is when you find out. Okay.
I would go as far to say it is.
Yeah,
I
mean, they did stuff that,
in my mind, I mean, that it was retaliation and a message to shut the fuck up, you know, like, but it tells you how deep rooted the racism is in the police department, that, you know, a lot of people are just learning. I learned this years ago about the police department was formed out of the slave patrol. You know what I mean? Like, they say blue blood. When, if you're whatever minority you are, you're blue, but you're really, it's white, you know, it's white supremacy. And I know a lot of police will not like this. I love police officers. I think we have to have them, but racist police officers, there is absolutely no room for it. And what do you have to say to these Blue Lives Matter folks? Or I saw Fox Theater pulled that bullshit. Or what do you say to All Lives Matter people? Like, what do we do? Are they just people that just don't want to get it? Like, do you feel like it's just people just want to poke, you know, they know what the fuck they're saying. You know what I mean? When they say All Lives Matter, they know what they're saying, but they won't admit it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what I think about All Lives Matter, first of all, that can't be true, because until you show that my life matters just as much as yours, you can't say that. And clearly, with systemic racism in this country where I live, you know, the places where Black people reside, we have healthcare disparities. Their experiences in hospitals is much different than a white person's. Our schools are underfunded. We have food deserts. We're disproportionately targeted by the police for the sake of profit, not only just in Ferguson. I mean, it's so you can't say all lives matter until you prove that mine does, and you value it just as much as yours. I mean, a woman I know, she says, you know, until you show that, I'm going to be specific. We have to be specific in Black lives. And I think that, you know, like you said, the Fox Theater, I don't think that was an accident. They're talking about the death of Captain Dorn. Say his name directly. You know, when you say, say his name directly, putting blue lives, Black lives, that's them trying to appease both constituents that they have, both of their, you know, their patrons, because the Fox Theater's been there for like, 80, 90 years. So obviously they weren't in, you know, they have that segment of St. Louis that they want to appease as well. That wasn't a mistake. You know what I'm saying?
And it is tragic. And I officers' lives that are lost in this are tragic. But, you know, and looting, you know, again, the looting, it's always the same people. Yeah, but you didn't condone the looting. Well, that's because you've never been pushed up against the wall. So you don't know. You're used to protesting about, Starbucks burnt your mouth on your latte or something. You know what I mean? Like, I see people, they dress up to go to these protests. They spend time making these fancy posters. Martin Luther King didn't have the opportunity to sit around and think about what creative poster he could make because he was getting fire hosed. Right. You know, and people always quote Martin Luther King when, you know, but not Malcolm X or, you know, this. And Martin Luther King didn't believe that. But Martin Luther King was assassinated. He was shot because, you know, and that's the thing and everybody hated Martin Luther King like they hate Shawn King now. Like, you know what I mean? Like they hated Kaepernick. Yeah. You think people hated Kaepernick? They hated MLK. The government hated MLK, and he's dead now. And then they made him a martyr. Then they made him a hero. Then they only taught us about the "I Have a Dream" speech. That's all we learned from Black history. Exactly. "I Have a Dream" speech, and that was it. And there's so
I mean that.
You know?
Yeah, it's the thing is that what white people tend to do in this country is they don't want to deal with racism head on the same way that South Africa dealt with apartheid head on when it came time.
Right.
They want to sugarcoat the truth. And this is the reason why I film and I get as close as I do, because white people will, you know, they will sugarcoat the truth. And that's what they did to Martin Luther's legacy. You know what I'm saying? They didn't understand, like they try to sugarcoat Jesus. Like they tried to sugarcoat every single thing. And the thing is like, I'm glad that the saying is getting traction now that a riot is the language of the unheard. And that rings so true because of the fact is that if you look at all of these circumstances, the world, like people act like we just started talking about this yesterday. This racism conversation, people have been to the council meetings. They've been writing letters. They've been standing on your sidewalks. You didn't pay attention till they shut down your I-95 highway. You didn't pay attention until they burned that building. And so, you know, forget that building because the man is dead. Your insurance is covering it. Forget that, you know. And if you're more concerned about that building, you need to be concerned about those politicians in office that allow these kinds of issues to trickle on down that cause this kind of outrage. That's really what my work about is in Ferguson. Is not about Mike Brown. It's about the buildup of 400 plus years of slavery and racism in this country and the systemic issues that led up to a community that had no other choice but to, you know, to take matters into their own hands and how that is blowing up all over the country, you know, like, and what we also have to do is be careful of the narrative because Minneapolis, those were white people setting those buildings on fire. That's white. They charged a white person for burning down the precinct last third week. I caught it myself, and I can't wait. Samson, to put this junk out because I tell you, I caught him red-handed so many times, going in there, stealing the liquor, burning, breaking the windows. I mean, I caught the police knocking out windows in Culpeppers when there was a protest, you know, but they said it was for safety purposes. But I caught that on camera. And even in Georgia, after Ray Sharp's book, that Wendy's, that's a white woman that burned that down. Wow. Then come back the days before that in Ferguson, they had a protest where somebody broke the glasses in the Ferguson Police Department. It was a redhead white kid that they got the warrant out for now, that they caught on camera doing that. Channel 5 caught guys trying to burn down that Italian restaurant next to the police department, and it was a black man that stopped them. So perpetuating that, it's like we're tearing up our own neighborhoods. It's so false. I mean, what sense does that make for me to burn down the store that I shop at, you know, the drugstore that I have to get my prescription from that lives next to me? Like, people don't understand. In Ferguson, that Quick Trip that burned down, after 12 o'clock midnight in Ferguson, there was no grocery stores open. They didn't have a 24-hour Schnucks or a Walmart that was 24 hours nearby. So when people needed food, water, aspirin, Tylenol, they had to go to that Quick Trip gas station, which was 24 hours. So what sense does that make me burning down my resource for after hours necessities and goods? It makes no sense at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the thing I find kind of crazy is that they were trying to make BLM, put it on the terrorist watch group, but KKK is still not. I mean, that should tell anybody who has a question. The fact that the KKK is not considered a terrorist organization, just kind of tells you everything you need to know, because they don't want to oust themselves,
Right. Yeah, yeah. I think it's an example of white supremacy in America.
Right.
And you look at when we elect a president, people have to understand all of these appointed positions that really have influence. That came down from that's an appointed position by your president. So it's no coincidence that when Obama is in office, they had Eric Holder, a black one, that they went down and they investigated Ferguson, and then he resigned, but I think he retired, and then Loretta Lynch, a black woman, came in there and sued the city of Ferguson. Then Trump gets in office, and they have just Jeff Sessions, and he's trying to repeal all the consent decrees that were set up, which were basically the consent decree is it's an agreement between the government and that police agency that they have to make reforms, and he's trying to pull it back. You know what I'm saying? And so people have to understand the context of like all these things that work. It's very important.
Right.
So.
Well, and the problem is none of us have been taught proper history. None of us from Black Wall Street to realizing that every time Black people got ahead, we destroyed their resources, and we brainwashed all of us to believing that it was only white people that invented things and made our country great. And I mean, as you see with Thomas Jefferson statues, even, and George Washington, people want to tear those down. Look, if they had slaves. There's just part of that history that we recognize. He was the president and whatnot, but we also got to recognize that he had slave teeth. They weren't wooden teeth. We were told he had wooden fucking teeth. We weren't told the truth. So I think I would love for my kids to be taught the truth, and then see how that affects white kids when they're approached with racism from their parents and their families, because that's where they learn it from. But like, if they're met with real history, it'd be interesting to see how that would affect the country.
Yeah, it's important to know that history. I think particularly for people that have opposing point of views that are white, because the thing that they figure is like, oh, slavery was a long time ago, and why can't you guys get it together? And they don't understand that, first of all, intergenerational wealth has a lot to do with this. We weren't even given the right to vote until 1965.
Right.
The Fair Housing Act didn't go through until 1968, and you know what that meant? There was restrictive housing covenants in St. Louis and other places of the country where Black people were not allowed to buy property wherever they want. And St. Louis, you have these affluent areas like Ladue and Chesterfield. Yeah. If how most wealth is passed down, and a lot of it has to do with land ownership or property ownership. But the fact that we weren't allowed to get it, that tells you everything. And this is in my mom's lifetime. So the fact is that didn't just happen until 68, 69.
Right.
Tell me what it would have been like if a Black person was able to own a piece of land, retain it since 1922, and pass that down to his family. What would that be worth today?
Right.
We would see a lot more Black millionaires.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Of course.
So understanding the history and the context makes a difference. In the way I liken racism, it's like any wound on the body, right? I could poke you with a thumbtack, and that bad boy will heal in a day. But if I cut your arm with a machete, that's gonna take a long time to heal that wound. It's gonna take a lot of work to heal that wound too, and that's what racism is like in this country.
I like that. I like that a lot, man. Chris, I gotta tell you, man, this was an amazing conversation. I think it was like an important conversation. I strive to try to get some of this out and talk about it, because I think that's a lot of the problems. People don't talk about it and cross the aisles enough. But you know, I'll let you go because I know you gotta, you know, get back to St. Louis and everything, you know. But I appreciate what you do, man. I can't wait to see your full feature length film, and yeah, and let everybody know they can find you. Have your you know, Maverick Media Group, follow you on Instagram and Facebook. And any last little message you want to say to people?
I mean, really, I ask and I pray that all people don't make this just a moment. This needs to be sustained. This traction that this momentum has. I really hope people within the Latino and the Asian community jump, because they've been on the bench. Let's just keep it a buck. Let's keep it 100. They've been on the bench regarding these issues, and when they're deporting people and Trump was trying to build the wall, people like me were out, you know. So the thing is, what we have to remember is if we save, if we protect, if we honor Black lives, which are the most undervalued, particularly Black women who have to deal with racism and sexism, if we value them and make sure that they're straight, then everybody else is going to see a beautiful trickle. So we have to do that. And so I just trickle up, because they value us at the bottom, so we have to make sure. So but I thank you, man. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm grateful, and I thank you for what you're doing, man. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to know you, and keep doing the work, man. Keep doing it.
I will, man, and I will see you. I will see you next time. That was Samson's World. Thank you, Chris. I will see you next time, my friend. All right.
Holla.
Holla.